Hey guys, CDTVProductions here, and yes, today I am doing another top 10 video, and that video will be part 3 to my most heartbreaking songs lists. And I'm doing this because there's so many songs that I still want to introduce you guys to if you haven't heard them already. Obviously there will be a couple of classic songs on here, but there will also be quite a few that I think you guys won't have heard, so I still want to introduce you to some of these. Now, real quick to any new viewers, I'm going to talk about these songs quite a lot. This isn't going to be a standard kind of pick 10 songs, talk about them for 30 seconds and move on type list. I'm giving my thoughts and opinions on all of these because I still don't know how frequently I'm going to be doing top 10s. As you guys can probably tell, I'm quite an indecisive person. If I'm doing top 10s a bit more, I don't want them to be generic, I want them to be critical and in-depth. So with that being said guys, this is CDTV Productions, and let's get into part 3 of my most heartbreaking songs list. Also, thank you for helping the first part hit 1 million views. And kicking off our list at number 10, we have De La Soul with Millie Pulled a Pistol on Santa.
But when Millie and him got home, he was more of a villain. While she slept and he crept inside her bedroom, and he would toss her, then would force her to give him headroom. Millie tried real hard to let
Now, this one does have quite a weird title, and that is actually acknowledged in the song's very first line, which I did like. But the story isn't lighthearted at all. To simplify it, it tells the story of Millie, a girl who was molested by her father. The catch in this song is that she tries to tell people, but nobody believes her because her father seems like such a saint to everyone else. He's really respected by everyone in this story, except Millie. Eventually, this gets to the point where she snaps. She visits the mall where her dad is working as Santa for a department store, pulls out a pistol, and kills him in front of all the kids that are there to see him. The sad thing is, no one really wins in the end. The story is quite horrific, but it's lower on the list because the beat is relatively happy in a way, and it kind of masks how dark the song really is. I know that it works with the song thematically, the beat is kind of deceiving in the same way that no one would believe Millie, like Millie's dad was deceiving, but it slightly takes away from how hard it tugs at your emotions. At number 9, we have one that was requested quite a lot in the comments, and a lot of people were asking where this was. We have Logic with Dear God.
Don't think I forgot that shit, it still burdens me. Her bare hands tight around my throat, I can't breathe. I screamed, I can't breathe, mama. Don't you want me, mama? Don't you love me, mama?
Here is a song where Logic talks to God through his music. This one is on here for one main reason, and that is when Logic details almost being strangled to death by his mother when he was just a kid. The way his vocals become more strained as he shouts, "Don't you want me, mama? Don't you love me, mama?" Oh, it's just, oh, it hits you. He then asks where God was to help him when this happened. The way he raps here just stands out from the rest of his delivery on this song, making it all the more saddening. Again, I have a reason for this being a bit lower on the list, and that is the fact that it ends on a relatively upbeat note. Logic acknowledges that he was made to struggle so that he could come out as a better person, and uses this terrible situation as a positive. And at our 8th spot, we have Mac Miller with Remember.
But this life moved fast. I never knew that yours wouldn't have lasted. The dirt hitting your casket like raindrops. I swear I'll let you know when the pain stops.
Now, in all honesty, I am not very familiar with Mac Miller's music, but this song does make me want to look into it more. This is a song dedicated to Mac's close friend, Ruben, who passed away in 2012. And what really gets me is that you can tell how close the two were. Mac even has a line saying he wished that Ruben had a child, so that Mac could tell that kid how great Ruben was during his life. He just wants people to know how great of a person he was. Also, of course, he talks about the shock of losing a friend at such a young age, as nobody really thinks they're gonna die young, so it is surprising when it does happen. This song stands as a great tribute to someone gone too soon. And at number 7, we have Vic Mensa with Heaven on Earth featuring The Dream.
Yeah, the other day I saw your sister, bro. Sad it had to be at another funeral. That was a wild summer, same when they took Rod from us. When I heard they stabbed him in the side,
swear to God, I could feel that shit in my stomach.
This was definitely my favourite song from Vic's album, The Autobiography. The song has such a great structure and is set up to have a few twists, whilst also being a true story. Now, I do recommend listening to this song without any spoilers, and I'm gonna talk about the story here, so I'll put a marker you can skip to if you don't want to hear it. So basically, the first verse is Vic rapping a letter he wrote for his dead friend named Cam. He tells us that he was killed for some reason after he got set up so someone could rob him. The second verse is then Vic rapping as if he was Cam, responding to Vic's letter. This alone is quite heartfelt, and then the third verse comes. This third verse is revealed towards the end of it to be from the perspective of the man who killed Cam, telling Vic why he did it. If you listen to this song, you'll realise the most upsetting thing about the whole situation is Cam really didn't need to die under these circumstances. It's awful that he had to lose his life over something so small. The beat for this and the hook from The Dream always put me in that kind of emotional mind state just every single time I hear this. And at number 6, we have Tech 9 with Fear.
Toughest thing to swallow is when someone who raised you, they're gonna forget ya. I'm feeling sadness, I'm feeling anger, steady praying.
Now, if you've listened to Tech 9's music between 2009 and 2015, you'll know that Tech was heavily affected over his mother's struggles with lupus, epilepsy, and some other mental disorders.
It's not a sad day like people would think, that this is Mother's Day and I'm talking about my mom that inspired me to do all this. It's a happy day because her spirit lives on through me.
He released this song in 2014, where his mother's health issues were almost at their peak. The first verse is quite chilling as Tech details a reoccurring nightmare where he'd be falling from the sky, but the real sad part comes in the second and third verses. In the second verse, he details a time when he called his mother, but she barely even recognized him due to her illnesses. He even specifically mentions that his mother thought he was a kid when the call took place, and thought he was still at school, even though Tech says he was 42 years old when the call took place. He says here that his biggest fear is that his mother will forget him completely after some time, summing it up with these haunting lines: "A stranger to the one who raised us, nameless to the one who named us." He then takes this further in the third verse by saying his other biggest fear is that he's praying to a god that doesn't exist because his mother isn't getting any healthier with his prayers. This tackles Tech's struggles with his own faith and his mother's health, and his mother would sadly pass away a month after this song was released. And at our 5th spot, we have Eminem with River featuring Ed Sheeran.
Bet I really would've loved your smile. Didn't really wanna abort, but fuck it, what's one more lie to tell an unborn child? Being a thief, being a lover, being a cheat.
Okay, people might disagree with anything from Revival being on here, but this song genuinely gives me goosebumps, and this is my list at the end of the day. Yes, the X-Lax line is not that great at all, and is delivered awfully. Like, the beat did not need to drop out during that punchline. It just puts emphasis on what is not a great punchline in the first place. But I think the story told here is pretty tragic. It's not an incredibly complex narrative. A woman cheats on her husband to get back at him for doing the same, but she winds up getting accidentally impregnated by the man she cheated on her husband with. This leads to her being forced to abort the baby, with both parties feeling really guilty for it. Like I said, that's not an incredibly complex story, that's pretty much it. But it's Eminem's way with words that drives this thing home. I don't know what it is, but the last lines of the second and third verses actually give me goosebumps. And I don't even mean that like a figure of speech. Like, for some reason, when I hear that, the hairs on my arm literally stand up. And that's happened every time I've listened to the song since it came out. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like it's worded so powerfully. Top it off with a passionate hook from Ed Sheeran, and you've got quite a tear-jerking song. And at our 4th spot, we have Chum by Earl Sweatshirt.
It's probably been 12 years since my father left me fatherless. And I just used to say I hate him in dishonest jest, when honestly I miss this nigga like when I was 6.
This is probably the darkest and most hopeless sounding song on this list. Earl has a very monotone delivery, which he somehow always makes work, but it works best on these more depressing songs. The whole thing has a dark atmosphere as Earl goes into detail about his father abandoning him at a young age on the first verse. He talks about how he used to say he hated his dad, but that he didn't really feel that way. It was just a front to mask his true emotions. The second verse is also quite depressing, as Earl mentions things such as his publicity making normal life harder and his own reckless actions. It's an interesting look at Earl's mental state after he was forced to go to a boarding school in Samoa. I also chose this because it's probably his most accessible song for anyone looking to get into Earl's music. I'd recommend checking this one out. And at number 3 we have Tupac with Brenda's Got a Baby.
I hear Brenda's got a baby, but Brenda's barely got a brain. A damn shame, the girl can hardly spell her name. That's not our problem, that's up to Brenda's family. Well, let me show you how it affects our whole community.
And here we have an absolute classic track, coming from Tupac's very first album. It addresses the issues of a pregnant preteen called Brenda. What makes it even more shocking is that the father of her baby is her older cousin. The track goes on to talk about the issues this can cause. As you can imagine, there's quite a few, with her parents not even really caring that she's pregnant because they can get the welfare check if Brenda has a child. And the story just keeps escalating and escalating until Brenda gives birth, but tries to get rid of the baby by throwing him in a dumpster. She just doesn't want to deal with that pressure. She feels too guilty, however, and doesn't go through with it, and decides to keep the baby. But the story doesn't have any type of happy ending. Her parents kick her out, so Brenda tries to gather some money to provide for her kid via prostitution. But the song ends very abruptly, revealing Brenda was killed whilst she was working as a hooker. And your imagination can only run wild with how hard her child's upbringing is going to be without a mother. The song covers so much ground in a single verse. So many topics and issues are touched on. And the saddest thing is that this story is based off of a true story that Pac read in the news. And at our number 2 spot, we have the song Animal Style, which is by Murs.
So excited that he moved in and kissed him. Roderick dissed him, threw him to the floor. He said, "You faggot, what you have to go and do that for?" Looked at his homies, y'all know I'm not gay. They just shook their heads, turned and walked away.
This song is fairly different to every other one on this list, as it tackles the issues that gay people have when they haven't came out yet. It's about 2 gay men who just got out of high school and details some of the struggles that they've had through their lives, and that they continue to have. See, one of them, Jonathan, was openly gay, whereas his boyfriend Roderick was still keeping it a secret. So for example, when John would see Roderick in school, Roderick would just ignore him because he didn't want anyone getting suspicious of his sexuality. The song tells us about how not many people really accept Jonathan because of his sexuality, saying his school principal condemned him for it and his parents just couldn't wait for him to get out of the house. However, it gets real bad when Jonathan slips up and out of excitement starts kissing Roderick in public in front of Roderick's friends. As Roderick hadn't came out as gay yet, all his friends basically disowned him for this, and Rod fell out with his boyfriend John for doing it. And then this story just ends in a really terrible way for these 2 men, but I'll let you listen to it to get the full effect. It's a really powerful examination of how difficult things can become for gay people when some ignorant people just refuse to accept them. And at our number 1 spot, and what I consider to be the most heartbreaking song on this list, we have Whit Lowry with Last Letter.
And I don't understand how you would stay so optimistic. You started chemo, fought the battle, never quit, that really left an imprint.
Now look, Wit may have blocked me on Twitter, and I feel like it's kind of mandatory to bring that up every time I talk about him, but that has not affected how I feel about his music in any way, especially with this song because it is so heartfelt and touching. Here Wit details how hard it was for him to lose his dad to cancer. Wit's intense delivery is incredibly well suited to this song and helps ratchet up the emotion tenfold. Wit tells us stories of how his parents divorced when he was really young, but his dad still stuck around to spend some time with Wit. However, it wasn't perfect, as this stress caused his dad to become an alcoholic. His dad did eventually find sobriety though, and we hear how this inspired Wit. It really is a beautiful song, and you can see how much the whole thing really affected Wit. Hearing him talk about how his dad won't be there to see him raise a family is rough, but I definitely recommend this song. It's packed full with emotion, and is about a subject that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, and that's why I've chose it as the most heartbreaking rap song for this list. It's a very good song. And that is going to be it for the video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this one. There will be links to where you can check out all the songs that I've named in this video in the description below. So if there's some that you heard snippets of and you like the way that I described them, go and check them out because the artists really deserve to have these songs heard. Like I said, I'm really unsure with how often I'll be doing top 10s just now because I remember I said before that I'd only be doing top 10s for my 10 fastest verses lists and for end of year lists, but I'm thinking of bringing them back a little bit more frequently because I'm like thinking about it. I do realize a lot of you guys did subscribe for the top 10s, and you know, like I said, if I do them a bit more, I'm gonna do them my way. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you all in the next one, and this is CDTV Productions signing out.